Imagine waking up in the dead of night. It's 30 degrees below zero. You're inside a heavy canvas tent pitched on a windswept mountain. Outside, a winter storm is screaming. But whatever you hear over the wind terrifies you so deeply, you don't even take the few seconds required to unbutton the door. Instead, you grab a knife, slash the canvas open, and push through. You plunge into the freezing wilderness. You leave your heavy coat, you leave your warm gloves, you leave your boots. You run into the pitch-black snow wearing nothing but your socks, knowing the cold will kill you in minutes. You run because whatever is waiting for you in that freezing darkness is somehow safer than whatever is inside that tent. Military investigators, forensic pathologists, and independent researchers have spent over 60 years trying to reconcile the documented reality of this night. It is a case built on impossible physical evidence, footprints that lead nowhere, and bodies that look like they survived a high-speed car crash, yet show no external bruises. In late January 1959, a 23-year-old student named Igor Dyatlov led a crew of 9 on a Category 3 expedition, the most dangerous rating a trail can receive. These were engineers and seasoned athletes, elite outdoorsmen certified in extreme winter survival. They knew how to build shelters in blinding blizzards and navigate by the stars. They were not amateurs prone to panicked mistakes. That on February 1st, a massive snowstorm threw them off course. Realizing they were losing daylight, Dyatlov made a tactical decision. Instead of retreating into the forest, he ordered the group to pitch their tent right there, on the exposed slope of Kolots. In the local Monsey language, it means dead mountain. 3 weeks later, after the group missed their telegraph check-in, search parties discovered the site. They found the tent half buried and slashed open from the inside. They found the hikers' boots and coats left untouched, and they found the frozen bodies scattered across the mountain. To understand what happened that night, we have to look past the decades of folklore and examine 3 specific, contradictory sets of evidence left behind in the snow. The violently destroyed tent suggests an immediate, overwhelming threat. One scientific explanation involves a Kármán vortex street. Under specific conditions, wind interacting with the shape of a mountain peak can create localized, low-frequency sound waves called infrasound. While human ears cannot hear infrasound, our bodies can feel it. Studies show that exposure to these frequencies can hijack the brain's primitive fight-or-flight response, inducing profound feelings of nausea, terror, and an overwhelming dread of impending doom. This would explain why the hikers destroyed their only shelter to escape. But as searchers followed the tracks leading away from the tent, they found a detail that contradicts a state of blind panic. The imprints perfectly preserved the 9 sets of tracks in the snow. They were the prints of people wearing only socks, or bare feet, in negative 20-degree weather, confirming they fled without their gear. Usually, someone running for their life leaves chaotic, leaping strides. But these footprints show the group descending the slope together, side by side. Instead of a frantic scramble, the tracks show a steady, orderly march toward the tree line. A mile from the tent, searchers found the first 2 bodies by a small fire, stripped to their underwear. Medical science calls this paradoxical undressing. In the final stages of hypothermia, the brain malfunctions and victims feel as if they are burning alive. In a state of delirium, they tear off their clothes moments before their heart stops. It is a freezing death inside a hallucination of fire. Months later, the spring thaw revealed the remaining 4 hikers buried deep in a rocky ravine. Their eyes and tongues were missing, a gruesome reality often seen when bodies are submerged in running meltwater, where small scavengers access soft tissue. However, the autopsy reports from the military medical examiner provided a detail that nature cannot explain. The ravine victims all suffered shattered ribs and cracked skulls. The examiner stated that the force required to cause such devastating bone fractures was equal to a high-speed car crash. Yet despite their bones being pulverized, none of the victims exhibited any external soft tissue damage. There were no deep scratches and no massive bruises. The skin was completely intact. The autopsy reveals a physical impossibility, a localized pressure that could shatter a human ribcage from the inside, leaving the outside of the body untouched. The case escalated to a matter of national security when investigators tested the hikers' clothing and found high levels of beta radiation concentrated on the bodies in the ravine. This finding aligns with reports from another group of hikers camped 30 miles south. They told investigators that on the night of the incident, they saw massive glowing orange spheres floating silently in the sky over the pass. If those spheres were experimental Soviet missiles or aerial detonations, they provide a single link between the disparate evidence. A low-altitude explosion would create a concussive shockwave, the exact kind of pressure that pulverizes bone from within without tearing the skin, while leaving behind the trace radiation found on the victim's clothing. This theory explains why the Soviet military immediately classified the documents and held closed-casket funerals. But it fails to account for the efficiency of the secret police. If a highly competent government wanted to cover up a lethal military accident, they wouldn't have left the tent, the journals behind, and the bodies lying around for a volunteer student search party to find. They would have swept the mountain clean. The most grounded forensic reconstruction suggests a sudden environmental trigger forced an evacuation. The group reached the tree line only to succumb to hypothermia and delirium. In the pitch-black woods, the final 4 hikers stumbled blindly into the ravine, where the fall onto jagged rocks shattered their bones. But even this sequence fails to explain the orderly footprints, the specific radiation on the sweaters, or the final photograph found in the hikers' own cameras. Frame 34 is the last blurry image taken on Yuri Krivonishenko's camera. While it may be a simple darkroom error, others see visual proof of the glowing spheres reported 30 miles away. Whether it is a light leak or a weapon hurtling toward the campsite, it remains the final unexplainable artifact of their journey. Dead Mountain remains an enigma, not because we lack facts, but because those facts point in opposite directions. Even with the files open and the forensics complete, the evidence of that night refuses to assemble into a single logical reality.